Rain streaked across the curved roof of the curator's sanctum like wet fingers dragging along a forgotten memory. Thunder, low and grumbling, echoed distantly over the city. Inside, the room was steeped in the scent of old wood, pipe smoke, and time-worn secrets. A single oil lamp flickered on a cluttered desk, its golden light quivering against the surrounding darkness. The flame danced with the subtle tremor of an approaching storm. Mr. McCallister stood motionless beside the desk, a porcelain teacup poised in his hand. The surface of the tea inside barely rippled, yet his eyes betrayed unease, watching shadows that no one else could see. The door behind him opened with a muted creak. Soft footsteps padded across the stone floor.
You sent for me, Mr. McCallister?
Yes. Close the door behind you, child.
As the heavy wood clicked shut, the air grew heavier, as though history itself leaned in to listen.
The seals are weakening, Ruthie. The Reliquary's protections won't hold much longer, and not from the ones who know how to look.
You mean Elliot?
No, you see, Elliot's awakening was expected. I'm talking about the others, the ones with old blood in their veins, the ones who seek power, not purpose.
A sudden gust slithered through the vents, carrying with it the scent of charred parchment and rusted iron. The oil flame sputtered violently.
Do you know the story of Prometheus's second flame?
That's not in the vault records.
Precisely.
And as he spoke those final words, a shelf of relics behind them groaned, as if stirred from slumber. The city slept beneath a quilt of rain, its dreams stirred by the restless spirits walking its veins. Water glided down fire escapes and spilled over rusted gutters. The lights above flickered, not from power shortages, but from something older pressing through the cracks in reality. In the heart of the old district, where historical plaques had long since corroded and forgotten libraries stood shuttered, a figure emerged from the mist. He was tall, angular, his presence part myth and part man, wrapped in a red coat that shimmered slightly in the sodium-orange glow of a broken street lamp. Raindrops slid from him like he wasn't truly there, like the rain itself feared to touch him. They called him Red, although no one who'd lived to tell knew his real name. He walked alone, but not in silence. The air around him whispered, a language without words, full of half-formed truths and twisted prayers. He came to a corner no one else noticed, an alley so narrow it felt more like a scar. At its center, beneath layers of city grime, was a stone embedded in the earth. Its edges bore carvings worn to near obscurity. Yet when Red approached, they shimmered. Faint crimson pulses rippled through the markings like blood remembering how to move. Red crouched.
Still warm, still waiting. Always were impatient, weren't you?
From his pocket, he drew a ring. Its surface was matte black, but the gemstone, a shard of polished obsidian, held an ember, alive and writhing. He pressed the stone to the etched sigil. The reaction was immediate. The stone lit up from within, not with light, but with intent. The alley walls shimmered. Shadows deepened, and distant sirens cut short mid-wail. And then the whispering returned. Not voices. Layers of voices. Some screamed. Some laughed. Some remembered. They slithered around Red like smoke. He smiled.
You can stop pretending. I know you're listening.
A gust of wind surged down the alley, carrying the acrid scent of burnt parchment and scorched olive oil. Somewhere behind him, a car alarm chirped once. then silenced itself. Red leaned forward, placing his other hand onto the cold stone.
You buried your toys deep, old man. But even shadows cast maps, if you know where to stand.
The wall beside the embedded stone shivered, revealing, not visually, but spiritually, a shimmer in space, not a door, a hinge, a memory of an entrance. The ring on his hand flared, and the runes responded. One by one, glyphs lit up across the alley in faint, blood-red lines, hidden language only visible in rain and dusk, the old protections of the Reliquary's first wards, now pulsing to life. Red stood.
Loki smiles. Hades waits. And I'm just the one carrying the invitation.
He stepped forward and passed his hand through the invisible veil. It parted. Just enough. Stone shifted underfoot. Dust fell from overhead pipes, and the wind outside the alley ceased, as if the entire block held its breath. Behind him, a woman screamed 2 streets over, the kind of scream born of madness, not violence. And somewhere beneath the city, a gate opened without sound. Red turned his head and whispered a single word, in a tongue that hadn't been heard in millennia. A name, not his, not McCallister's, something older.
Nemosin.
The whisper struck the city like a bell rung beneath the skin of the world. Power shifted. Wards buckled. And the ancient sigils of the Reliquary, those etched in all 3 pantheons, began to glow. Below the surface of the city, where subways never reached and no street map dared name the corridors, the Reliquary pulsed like a living thing. Its walls were carved not by hands, but by purpose. Veins of mythic metal fused into stone, runes embedded like nerve endings, dormant, until now. And tonight, the heartbeat of the warehouse returned. Ruthie ran through it, every footstep triggering subtle changes in the air, pressure shifts, magnetic pulses, and the faint hum of arcane machinery awakening after too many years of silence. She held a small obsidian pendant in one hand. Its glow shifted from blue to amber with each chamber she passed through, a living key that kept the doors obedient. Behind her, ancient doors of black steel slammed shut with a mechanical hiss, sealing off the path. Ahead, long corridors flickered to life, not with light bulbs, but with streams of woven sigils traced into the ceiling, flowing like veins. The Reliquary was not a building, it was a nervous system, and it was scared.
4th ring sealed. I've activated primary wards along the vault spines. No sign of breach, but the ley line's acting weird, like it's listening.
She paused in front of a relic vault, its door plated in layers of magically treated bronze, dragon bone, and something that shimmered like frozen lightning. She touched the side panel. It pulsed red.
Authorization. Ruthie Delacour, Curator's 2nd. Open. Priority. Artifact audit.
The vault groaned as its runes scanned her soul print. Gears moved without touching, locks clicked in silent patterns, and finally, the heavy door opened with a shudder. Inside, the vault felt too cold for the underground. Shelves lined with containment cases shimmered faintly. Objects, a fractured horn of Gabriel, an hourglass filled with frozen time, a spear that hummed with divine judgment, sat untouched. But one pedestal stood empty. Its protective field was still active, sparking lightly against the absence it failed to notice.
No, this can't be.
She stepped forward, the pendant in her hand now flashing rapidly. The nameplate read, "The Eye of Tantalus. Vaulted. Do not activate without curator authorization." The field flickered again. Ruthie pulled a secondary device from her coat, a scry orb the size of a walnut. It shimmered with misty projections of the Reliquary's layout, pulsing red on the missing eye's node.
McCallister, I've got a Class 3 breach. The eye's gone. Repeat, gone. We have been compromised.
Then we're already too late.
As his voice echoed across the line, a soft click echoed from the hallway Ruthie had just passed through. She froze. The Reliquary's air changed, no longer humming. It shivered, and something else moved in the dark. Not footsteps. The absence of sound where sound should be. She turned quickly, activating her pendant. All along the corridor, mounted sentries slid from hidden compartments. Metal serpents wound in protective glyphs, each one igniting like a lit fuse. Automated eyes scanned the air. Arcane wards scrawled themselves in midair like blooming runes.
Okay. Lockdown sequence. Reactivate Tier 3 spiritual wards. Bring the ancestral circuit online.
Beneath her feet, the floor lit up, glowing white as buried circuitry reawakened. Ethereal projections of ancient curators flickered for a moment, whispering phrases in languages forgotten by most deities. The Reliquary was coming alive. And it was terrified. A red dot appeared on Ruthie's scry orb. Not in the building. Below it. Moving upward.
You're not getting in, not without burning the gods with you.
As she spoke, she reached for the emergency rune carved into the wall. A glyph made for one thing, severing all connections to the outer world. Her fingers hovered just over it. And then it stopped glowing. The glyph fizzled, snuffed out. A distant sound vibrated through the vault walls. Not an explosion, not magic. Laughter, but it came from underneath the city, deep, mirthless, and old.
Red has finally found us. McCallister.
With her hand now trembling, her radio now silent, she pulled back from the broken glyph and turned. She no longer had time to secure the Reliquary. She needed to protect what was left. The underbelly of the city ran deeper than steel, deeper than the bones of forgotten foundations, into layers never mapped, never charted, never meant for return. Here, where the rock was black and warm to the touch, an ancient corridor opened like a sealed lung taking its first breath in centuries. Torchlight didn't survive this deep. There was no oxygen for it to cling to. Instead, the walls glowed faintly, not from magic, but memory. They remembered power. Red stepped slowly through the corridor, his boots echoing against stone that seemed to listen. Every step left a footprint, not of mud or dust, but of intent, pressed into the old paths of gods who had long since gone silent. Behind him, nothing followed. And yet, he was not alone. The tunnel widened, not into a chamber, but into a space that didn't obey architecture. The walls bent as if caught between dimensions, curving in on themselves, then straightening again when looked at too long. At its heart stood a vault. Not a door. A boundary. Its frame was a patchwork of deific symbols. Norse runes braided with Greek sigils, broken seals from the Egyptian underworld stitched between them like wounded flesh. And a third language, older than any pantheon, danced in the seams like moving ink. The vault pulsed slowly. A thrum felt in the teeth more than the ears. Cold crept from the base, freezing the very breath from the air. And yet, from the top vents, steam curled out in hissing rivulets. Fire and frost. Death and rebirth. The place breathed opposition. Red paused before it. He took a long breath, then spoke.
Zeus whispered prophecy into my bones. Hades showed me what comes after the scream. But Loki taught me to listen through time.
He reached into the lining of his coat and pulled free an ancient coin, bronze at its core, but tarnished by something black, and spattered with a dried red that could only be blood. Its markings were worn away, save for a single eye, open and cracked down the middle. With deliberate care, he placed the coin onto a small, round depression in the vault's surface. It sank, slowly, as if the vault was tasting it. And then the vault sighed. Not air, not metal, but a sound of release, like 1,000 locks exhaling at once. The walls trembled. Above Red's head, thin tendrils of light spider-webbed through the carved runes, illuminating the entire structure. A shimmer raced down the length of the corridor behind him, igniting hidden glyphs and wards that hadn't seen light since Atlantis sank beneath the sea. But the light was not protective. It was welcoming.
This place isn't yours anymore, Curator.
Meanwhile, inside the curator's office far above, in the time-worn sanctuary built from stories and regret, McCallister stood frozen. He stared into the surface of his tea, now no longer tea at all. Its color had darkened. Its surface now shimmered like obsidian glass. A mirror. But it did not reflect him. It reflected a tunnel of ancient stone and the face of a man standing before a door that should never open.
He's found the boundary.
The mirror warped, rippling violently as red lightning danced across its edges.
The gate of thrice-damned kings.
Outside, the wind howled across the rain-slicked rooftop of the warehouse, pulling at Ruthie's coat like it was trying to pull her away from the city below. Her eyes locked on the skyline. Far off, a tower pulsed red, a steady throb like a heart under siege. Energy arced from its spire, striking clouds and dragging them down into a spiral. Ruthie didn't blink. She raised a comlink to her mouth, but didn't speak into it. There was no one left to call.
I need Elliot, I need him now, but we can't wait for him anymore.
Below a long, forgotten church, abandoned and left to crumble. Beneath it all, deep within its catacombs, miles from sunlight, Red stood in a chamber built from memory and bone. Candles burned on their own, waxless, suspended in rings of air. The room's only feature was a massive mirror, 12 feet tall, framed in twisted root and braided ash wood. But the glass did not show Red. It showed someone else. A young man, blue hoodie, burned sandals, eyes glowing golden with a god's breath inside them. Elliot Mercer.
So, the godling does awaken.
He stepped closer. The mirror shivered, and then the surface imploded inward, sucking all light with it and releasing a pulse of energy so raw the candles extinguished without smoke. Red just stood there, grinning.
Let's see if the messenger boy can outrun death.
And from the heart of the shattered reflection, something ancient stirred. Something with memory and teeth. A moment stood suspended between realms. Voices stir and unseen powers shift. Something ancient takes notice of the breach. The mirror was gone. Not shattered. Not broken. Unmade. In its place stood an absence that shimmered like oil and glass. A tear in the fabric of what should be. And from that tear, it emerged. Not a shape, not yet, but a sound. A heartbeat that wasn't human, deep, rhythmic, older than civilization. The chamber lit with invisible light, felt in the bones before it reached the eyes. Red stood before the breach, unmoving, his silhouette outlined in red mist, his coat billowing slightly, though there was no wind. His eyes, for the first time, reflected not mischief or amusement, but reverence. Behind him, the floor of the catacombs cracked, thin fractures spidering across the stone, glowing faintly with underworld fire. Candles relit themselves, not with flames, but with floating spheres of cold, white light. And above, the world shifted. Red stood before the breach, the void that had once been a mirror, now pulsing like a heartbeat torn from time. The veil shimmered. On the other side, not darkness, but motion. Wings, skeletal and vast. Flames, cold and inverted. Runes, unmaking themselves even as they appeared. Red didn't flinch. He stepped forward, coat trailing like liquid shadow, eyes reflecting the impossible.
We were never meant to be kept apart.
From the rift, a voice replied. But it was not a sound. It was a memory. A chorus of dying stars. A laugh at the end of history. And a single word, unspoken but burned into the stone. Release. The Vault of Thrice-Damned Kings groaned, and the first chain gave way. Deep inside the Reliquary, in one of the oldest, least touched storage rings known as the Sixth Ring, a sealed cabinet shook violently. Its iron clasps snapped open, locks undone. The contents within were not released. They awakened. Dozens of relics, dormant for centuries, began to tremble, their latent energies pulsing in unison like a calling bell. One relic in particular, a dagger forged from obsidian and sunstone, rolled across its display and fell to the floor. When it struck, it screamed. A soundless scream heard only in the dreams of gods. A child sat alone on a rusted merry-go-round, her doll clutched tightly in her lap. Suddenly, she stopped spinning. Her gaze rose toward the clouds, now red and swirling, painted with streaks of violet lightning that danced without thunder. She tilted her head, smiled.
The gods are waking up.
Far from Earth, bathed in the warmth of ambrosial light, Mount Olympus rose above the veil, suspended between worlds. Here, time slowed. Mountains curved inward like petals of a divine bloom, and rivers of molten silver carved paths through the clouds, and at the peak, Elliot stood on the steps of a marble platform, his body still adjusting to the altitude of the divine. The sandals of Hermes shimmered faintly at his feet, warm and alive beneath him. A golden wind whispered through the folds of his borrowed cloak. He didn't speak. He didn't know. He couldn't feel the danger racing beneath his feet on the planet below. He watched doves circle a temple spire. He listened to laughter in a language he hadn't yet learned. He took in the smell of myrrh and lightning. And for the first time since his life changed, Elliot felt peace. Unseen to him, far from the polished courtyards, a ruined temple stood crumbling on Olympus's edge, where none of the gods dared step. A statue stood there, eroded, unnamed, blindfolded. But tonight, it moved. Cracks formed at its wrists, vines recoiled from its base, and behind it, a mural long sealed beneath vines and dust began to shine once more. It did not show Elliot. It showed Red. Standing in a tunnel, one hand on a door, and a reflection that was not his own behind him. Back on Earth, the Reliquary's deepest sensors recorded one final spike before blacking out. Energy surge.
Pantheon agnostic. Divine origin unknown.
Red's voice echoed softly, not in any chamber, but across time, space, and realm.
Tell your gods to wake up. I've already opened the first lock.
Thank you for listening to Episode 4, The Curator of the Forgotten Reliquary Adventures. If you have enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on upcoming episodes.